He ditched my wedding for a trip with my sister, then I changed everything. I am 26 years old and getting married this week, and even though there are still 5 days to go, things have already turned into a mess, all thanks to my sister and my father, which is honestly nothing new. A little background first, my dad has been raising us alone for the last 10 years since my mom passed away after a long fight with cancer when I was 16. It was hard on everyone, but it hit me differently because that was when I truly realized I was on my own, especially with a sister like mine who always acted like she was royalty. My mother had treated us fairly, but my dad clearly favored my sister once she was gone, and that became more obvious as the years passed. Katie is 2 years older than me, and I have never met someone so entitled and irritating in my life. She treated me like her maid when we were kids, and if I ever said anything about it, my dad would just tell me to go along with it since she was too weak to do things herself. That was his excuse, and he believed it because she had been a sick child growing up, but by the time she was a teenager, she was fine. Still, she kept pretending she was always sick to avoid doing anything, and somehow, it always worked. I was the one cleaning up, cooking, doing errands, basically running the house when I was barely old enough to drive. And if I didn't, nobody else would because my dad would come home tired from work, and I didn't want to make things harder for him. Once I turned 18 and left for college, things started getting better for me because I did not have to deal with her anymore. We barely stayed in touch after that, which was a relief because we never got along. Katie was never kind or even tolerable. She would always try to provoke me, insult me, make fun of anything I did or said. So, yeah, leaving home felt like escaping a war zone. I missed my dad, sure, but I was not about to give up my peace just to be part of a family that constantly made me feel second best. And in spite of how unfair he was when it came to Katie, I still had a decent relationship with my dad. We clashed a lot, especially over how he always sided with her no matter what, but I still cared about him. We argued plenty over the years, but he was my dad, and I always ended up patching things up with him. I met Andy, my fiancé, during college, and after being together for nearly 8 years, we decided this was finally the right time to get married. Our careers were going well, we had stability, and it just felt right. I wish I could say the same for Katie, but she has been a complete disaster lately. She ended up moving back in with our dad after failing at life again. She had been on her own for a few years after graduating, but last year she quit her job to start a jewelry business with her friend. They had no plan, no strategy, just vibes, and of course, it failed miserably. They burned through all the money, which mostly came from people in our family, and ended up with nothing to show for it. After it collapsed, she did not even try to get another job. She has been unemployed for 6 months and has not made the slightest effort to get back on her feet. Now she is completely depending on our father, who had been planning to retire soon, but that is probably not going to happen anymore. This is one of the things we keep fighting about because I think she needs a serious wake-up call. She is not a child anymore, and she cannot sit around feeling sorry for herself while my father works himself into the ground to support her. He keeps saying she just needs time to heal emotionally, and I think that is a load of nonsense. We avoid that topic now because it always ends in yelling. To top it off, I got engaged not long after her business collapsed, and my dad thinks that just made her feel worse. He says she is upset because even her little sister is getting married and doing well, while she cannot even function enough to look for work. And I know she is bitter because she posts vague messages online fishing for sympathy and always finds a way to blame me. She keeps saying I am manipulative or that I only got lucky because I step on others to succeed. It is ridiculous. I worked hard to get where I am, and she is where she is because she refuses to take responsibility for her life. The only thing I do feel bad about is her cat. That poor animal died 3 weeks ago after being with her for 15 years. She was devastated, and even I could not help but feel sorry. My dad said she was so crushed that she stopped eating and barely got out of bed. I almost reached out to her myself but decided to let my dad deliver my condolences instead, just to avoid any drama. She was already spiraling, and that just made it worse. Still, I was knee-deep in wedding planning and tried to focus on that. I stayed in touch with my dad, comforted him when things got too hard, but that was about it. I did not expect this to turn into my problem, but then a few days ago, my dad hit me with something unbelievable. I had called to ask him to walk me down the aisle, something I thought was a given, but he told me he needed time to think about it. That already felt strange, and then he called the next day to say he could not do it. I was stunned. I asked him why, and the reason he gave made my jaw drop. Apparently, Katie wanted to fly to Hawaii on the day of my wedding to scatter her cat's ashes on the beach, because she had taken her cat there once during a road trip with friends and decided that place was special. My wedding day happened to fall exactly 1 month after the cat died, so she thought it was the perfect time. Not only was my dad not walking me down the aisle, he was not even coming to the wedding at all. He said he was sorry and that he wanted to make it up to me later, but Katie had finally shown interest in doing something for the first time in weeks and asked him to go with her. She did not want to go alone and said she needed emotional support. I was furious but tried to stay calm. I suggested maybe one of her friends could go, or maybe she could wait until the day after the wedding, just so he could at least be there. But he said she was set on doing it that exact day, and he had already tried suggesting alternatives. She shut him down and accused him of not caring. She told him that I would have all kinds of people around me on my wedding day, while she only had him, and that she should be his focus right now. And when my dad said he agreed that she needed his support more than I did, I just lost it. I told him that he has always prioritized her and now he was proving it once again by skipping my wedding just to hold her hand on a beach while she dumps cat ashes into the ocean. I spent the next couple of days crying more than I care to admit, but after all that, something in me just flipped, and I decided if my dad could make a choice that hurt me like that, then I was going to make one that would bother him just as much, and I knew exactly how to do it because if there was one person in this world my father could not stand, it was his own twin brother, my uncle, and that gave me an idea. Growing up, I saw how much those two despised each other. Whenever they were forced to be in the same place, it turned into a petty competition, and every family gathering felt like a showdown no one asked for. My grandparents tried everything to get them to stop but nothing worked, and after my mother passed away, my father stopped showing up to any event where he knew his brother would be there. I never had a problem with my uncle, we were never close or anything, but I could relate to not getting along with a sibling, and after my dad bailed on my wedding for my sister's cat funeral in Hawaii, I figured it was the perfect time to reach out and ask him to do the one thing I knew would hit a nerve, walk me down the aisle. When I called and explained what happened, he was shocked I even asked because we were not that close, but the moment I told him it was just to make my dad mad, he was all in. He literally laughed and said that even though they were in their 50s now, he would never pass up a chance to annoy his brother, and I respected that level of honesty. So we agreed to put it out there publicly, and that same evening I made a post thanking my uncle for stepping up to walk me down the aisle. It did not take long. A few hours later, my phone rang. I had unblocked my dad expecting this would happen, and sure enough, there he was, furious that I would replace him with the one person he could not stand. He said he would talk to Katie about changing the date of the whole ashes thing and that if I would just let him do it, he would be there. But I told him no. I told him he made his choice, and now he gets to live with it, just like I have always had to deal with being second place in this family. He called me childish and mean and said I was being spiteful just because he was trying to support my sister in her lowest moment, and I told him yeah, maybe I am being petty, but maybe it is about time he got a taste of how it feels to not be the one chosen. He started crying and said he never thought I would be the kind of person to turn this into a game when Katie had lost everything and could not even get out of bed. And for a second I did feel kind of bad because yeah, she really had been going through it lately, but then again, so had I, and no one had ever rearranged their life to support me. I did not say anything else after that. I just hung up. Later I told my uncle that we got the reaction we wanted and thanked him, but then I thought about it more and realized that the last thing I needed on my wedding day was more drama, so I made a decision. With 2 days left until the ceremony, I told my uncle I was just going to walk myself down the aisle, and he totally understood. He even said he was relieved because he was never too sure about being the one to do it anyway. I also messaged my father, did not call him because I was not about to get into another argument, and I told him he was welcome to attend the wedding, but he would not be walking me down the aisle. And I made it clear that if he chose to go to Hawaii instead, that would be his decision, but it would be the last time he made a choice that put Katie over me, because after that, I was done. I told him if he picked her again, I would cut him out of my life completely. I had spent too long trying to make him see me, trying to be the bigger person, trying to hold the family together, and all it ever got me was disappointment. I wanted to feel good on my wedding day. I did not want to keep wondering if my dad was going to show up or if I was going to be left standing there alone. He never replied to my message, and I never got an answer. Andy, my fiancé, said I made the right call, and I knew he was right. There was no fixing things this close to the big day, and it was better to stop hoping for something that was clearly never going to happen. So fast forward to now, I am officially married. The ceremony was yesterday, and I still cannot believe it really happened, that I am actually someone's wife now. It is wild. I keep looking at my hand and seeing both the engagement ring and the wedding band, and it still feels unreal, but I am happy. That being said, I owe you an update, and it is not exactly a joyful one because, as you might have guessed, my dad never showed up. He chose Katie again. He went with her to scatter her cat's ashes in Hawaii instead of attending my wedding. He never replied to my message before the event, so I spent the entire time not knowing if he would walk in or not. I kept checking my phone, hoping maybe he would change his mind last minute, but nothing. I walked myself down the aisle, said my vows, and went through it all without him. And then, after everything was over, he finally texted me to say he was in Hawaii with Katie and had decided that she needed him more than I did. He said he hoped I would understand. I do not. Not anymore. I am done trying to understand people who never try to understand me. I might have still felt something after reading that message from my dad if he had just stopped at saying he was sorry, but no, he had to throw in that what I did with my uncle was childish and embarrassing, and he said that my behavior made him think it would be better if we just stayed out of each other's lives for a while, and that was part of why he chose not to come to the wedding. I am not going to argue. I know what I did was petty. I knew it when I did it. But honestly, it was not about being mature or taking the high road. It was about making him feel even a fraction of the way I have felt since my mom passed away. I never expected perfection, I just wanted him to care enough to show up. Clearly, that was asking too much. After that message, I blocked him. It was my wedding day. I did not want to spend it feeling miserable. He had already made his choice not to be there, so sending a message just to say he was not coming felt like rubbing it in. People at the wedding asked where my dad and sister were, and I did not make excuses. I told them the truth. I figured it did not reflect badly on me, so there was no reason to cover it up. Some people were stunned, others just shook their heads and laughed in disbelief, but not in a funny way, more like that uncomfortable laugh you give when something is so ridiculous you do not know what else to do. By the time the night ended, I was pretty sure everyone knew my dad had skipped my wedding to toss cat ashes in Hawaii with Katie. He could not give me one single day, not even that, and to me, that is where he really failed as a father. But even with all of that, my wedding was amazing. I had fun, I married the man I love, and no one could ruin that. From here on out, Andy is my family. End of story. A week has passed since then, and it still feels good to say I am married. Andy and I are heading out for our honeymoon soon, and I wish I could just enjoy this moment, but of course, my sister and my dad could not let me do that either. A few days ago, Katie texted me. I had not blocked her, only my dad, and after reading what she sent, I came close to cutting her off too. I only keep the line open in case something happens to our dad, because even after all the mess, I would still want to know if he got sick or hurt. I know people will tell me I should go no contact completely, but I do not think I can. Just because he has been a bad father does not mean I am going to stop being a decent daughter. Maybe that is stupid to some people, but it is the way I was raised, and I am not going to change that. So anyway, the message she sent was everything I expected and worse. She told me they had just gotten back from Hawaii and that relatives were already reaching out saying they were wrong for missing my wedding. She blamed me for twisting the story and said I made them look bad on purpose, that she was disappointed in me for throwing them under the bus when I should have shown more kindness and understanding because she was in pain. She went on about how losing a loved one is hard and said that I should be more compassionate, and then she said my dad was hurt that I blocked him and that I needed to undo that because apparently I was being selfish and not thinking about anyone else. She wrapped it all up by saying she hoped I would apologize, but she was not holding her breath. It was the tone that got to me more than the words, like I was some heartless villain while she was this tragic figure who just happened to ruin my wedding. I wanted to block her on the spot, but instead, I sat down, wrote out a calm response, ran it by Andy, and sent it. I told her yes, I told the truth about why they missed the wedding. I said I was not about to lie or protect people who had treated me poorly. I said they made that choice and they could live with how it looked. I reminded her that on the one day I asked to be a priority, they picked something else, and I had nothing to apologize for. I told her if my dad was upset I blocked him, maybe he should have thought about that before bailing. I said I no longer wanted contact with either of them unless it was an emergency, and that I would not respond otherwise. I ended the message by telling her I agreed with our dad for once, it was best we spend time apart. I told her I was focusing on my husband now, and he was the only family I needed. I wished them both well and told her goodbye. She responded not long after, said she would respect my wishes and that our dad was still really upset, but at this point, I am done caring. He did this to himself. She is probably relieved not to have to deal with me, and if my dad is hurting now, that is the result of years of choosing her and leaving me in the background. I am not going to let them ruin any more of my happiness. Andy and I planned this honeymoon for a long time, and I have earned some peace, so that is what I am going to take now.